In number 27, we're asked to look at the graph, and it says that the graph below illustrates a relationship between the functions y equals 7 to the x and y equals log base 7 of x. This is an exponential and a logarithmic function. It then asks us to determine the relationship between the two functions. Now we know that they are inverses. This can be shown in several ways. Algebraically, we would use the composition of functions. If the first function were f and the second function g, then f of g of x would equal g of f of x, and both would equal x. And this would show that the two are functions algebraically. It actually asks us to explain how the relationship is determined, however, from the graph. And there are two ways to determine this relationship from the graph. The first is to notice that the two functions are reflections of each other across the line y equals x. So if we were to fold this graph over on itself across this blue line, y equals x, we would notice that the two graphs match up perfectly. The second way that we can determine the relationship from the graph is to work with a few specific points on one graph and then to switch the x and y values and show that those same points appear on the other graph. Starting with the black graph here, let's set up a little data table. Noticing that this is the exponential graph. It's showing exponential growth with a base of 7. If we were to put the value -2 into that function, we would get something very close but not equal to 0. Remember, this graph approaches the x-axis but never reaches it. If we were to plug in the value 0 and do 7 to the 0 power, we would get 1. And if we were to plug in the value 1 for x, we would get 7 to the first is 7. Now we're talking about this point, and this point on the graph. Notice if you switch those x and y values, we will get points that appear on the other graph. So at approximately 0, we should be at -2, at 1 we should be at 0, and at 7 we should be at 1. And here are those points on the second graph. And again, we can see that the two graphs are inverses.